SpaceX just became a $1.75 trillion AI chip company. Not a rocket company anymore. Not really. Here's why that changes everything. Elon Musk's xAI division just priced its IPO, and the valuation is absolutely massive. We're talking $1.75 trillion. That's larger than every Fortune 500 tech company except Apple and Microsoft. But this isn't about rockets. This is about something way more valuable. The infrastructure that powers artificial intelligence. The chips, the compute, the data centers, the stuff everyone actually needs. This IPO announcement just revealed something huge about where real AI money actually flows, and it's not where most people think. Let's start with what xAI actually is, because most people get this wrong. xAI isn't primarily a model company competing with OpenAI or Claude. It's an infrastructure play. The centerpiece is Colossus, a massive supercomputer built for training and running AI models at scale. We're talking about a facility with hundreds of thousands of GPUs all networked together. Colossus generates enormous revenue from compute rental. Companies pay per hour to use it. That's predictable, recurring revenue. Very different from the venture capital cash burn model of pure model development. Colossus is already operational, already generating cash. The xAI team built it, owns it, controls the entire stack from hardware to software to the applications running on top. That vertical integration is worth billions by itself. Most AI startups are completely dependent on Nvidia chips and cloud providers like AWS. xAI owns their compute destiny. Now here's the institutional confidence part. Major investment firms backing this IPO aren't gambling on whether Grok becomes the next ChatGPT. They're betting on something more fundamental. That AI infrastructure is essentially a monopoly business. There's limited supply of advanced chips. There's limited space in data centers. There's limited bandwidth to train frontier models. Whoever controls that infrastructure controls everything downstream. This is the same economic logic that made Nvidia worth $2 trillion. Nvidia doesn't make the best consumer graphics cards anymore. It owns the chip supply that powers AI. xAI is attempting the same play at the full stack level. They're trying to control compute, infrastructure, and applications all at once. The $1.75 trillion valuation reflects what institutional investors think that's worth. It's a statement. AI infrastructure is more valuable than AI itself. If you're still with me, you'll want what's coming next, so subscribe so you don't miss it. Now let's continue. But there's something else driving this valuation. The Department of Defense contract. xAI just signed a federal agreement to provide Grok capabilities to military and defense applications. This is significant for two reasons. First, government contracts provide stable, long-term revenue that's completely disconnected from consumer AI trends. Second, federal backing legitimizes xAI as critical infrastructure. Once the government depends on your systems, you're protected, your contracts are protected, your supply chains get priority. This is why legacy defense contractors are so profitable. It's not innovation, it's stability and government dependence. xAI is positioning Grok as essential national infrastructure. That changes the entire risk profile. Investors aren't just buying into a company anymore. They're buying into a government-backed utility. The chip monopoly angle deserves deeper attention. Nvidia controls the consumer and corporate AI chip market, but there's enormous friction, long lead times, export restrictions, pricing power. xAI is attempting to build an alternative stack. Custom chips optimized for their specific workloads. Vertical integration so they don't depend on Nvidia supply chains. If they succeed, they create a second superpower in AI infrastructure. That's genuinely valuable. But if they fail, if they can't manufacture at scale, if supply chain issues slow them down, the whole thesis collapses. The $1.75 trillion valuation assumes they succeed at hardware design, manufacturing partnerships, software optimization, and commercial scale. That's a lot of execution risk wrapped into one number. But institutional investors are apparently confident. Why? Because Colossus is already working, already generating revenue, already proven. The additional bet is just whether they can replicate and scale it. That's a much easier bet than building something from zero. Here's the bigger picture nobody's talking about. This IPO signals a shift in how AI investment actually works. The venture capital era of pure model development is ending. The infrastructure era is beginning. Investors want predictable revenue. They want government backing. They want moats that can't be commoditized. A model can be replicated. A data center can't. A government contract is hard to lose. A product launch is easy to fail. xAI's $1.75 trillion valuation isn't really about whether Grok is better than ChatGPT. It's about whether Grok plus infrastructure plus government contracts equals a defensible, profitable, long-term business. And apparently, investors think it does. This matters because it changes where capital flows next. It matters because government-backed AI infrastructure creates geopolitical advantages. It matters because once you control the compute, you control what models can exist. You control what's possible. You control what's profitable. That's real power, not the software, not the model, the hardware and the infrastructure underneath it all. SpaceX transforming into an AI infrastructure company through xAI isn't random. It's strategic. Vertical integration, government backing, recurring revenue from compute, defensible position against competition. The $1.75 trillion valuation looks insane until you realize it's pricing xAI as the second pole in AI infrastructure after Nvidia. And that's actually plausible. The real money in AI isn't models. It's the infrastructure that runs them. If xAI executes, if they scale Colossus, if they keep government contracts, that valuation could be justified. If they don't, it's just another expensive bet by a brilliant entrepreneur. Either way, pay attention. This is where AI investment is going. This is what institutional money actually believes is valuable. If this helped, subscribe. We break down the biggest AI news every day.